Welcome, everyone, to Christiana's Psychic Café and to Mercury Retrograde. Hope everyone's ready for that. I'm so glad to have you with us today. We have a great guest. We have a wonderful music video and a tarot video at the end of the show. Before I bring my guest on, though, we're going to do our card of the week. If you remember last week, we got the Tower reversed. And then we had our astrologer, Jim Cummins, explain what's going on the planet, and it all fit together. Today, my guest, Jessie Ann Nichols George, and I will be discussing compassion. She does some really exciting, innovative work with compassion. I can't wait to share that with you. It'll be interesting to see if our card of the week reflects that or not. So you can see I'm not cheating. It is drawn at random. And I'm working with Chiara Marchetti's Legacy of the Divine Tarot today, one of my favorites. Interesting. Okay. Our card for the week is the Page of Wands. Certainly the Page of Wands can refer to a young person in your life, especially someone who is creative and passionate. The Page of Wands also encourages us to speak about the things that we are passionate about and encourages us to learn how to use our creativity. Does that connect with compassion? Well, we will ask our guest, and let's bring her on. Jessie Ann Nichols George, I want to welcome you so much to Christiana's Psychic Cafe. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Christiana, and it's such a pleasure to be here. This is so fun. I love what you're doing here, and I love the card of the week because I do a lot of those things myself. And the Page of Wands, how appropriate for compassion.
Well, tell me how. Tell me how the Page of Wands connects with compassion.
Well, the Page of Wands, too, is really a messenger of action. And it's a influence, and it plays right in with a lot of the work I do as far as becoming the example. And you become the messenger as the example. And that becomes, I think, playing right into the Page of Wands. Because for people to learn, sometimes they may not be putting the pieces together no matter how smart they are, how intelligent they are, how much spiritual background they have. We all have those days where it's just not clicking in, or we're just followed into those mundane routine areas of things. And when we have people that live that example, or they keep pursuing with us, they keep showing us that example, that's oftentimes the best way to learn.
Beautiful, well said, and clearly, you know, it was so funny. You and I have not met in person. We have Ambika Davy, Amy Ford, to thank for us making our connection.
Yes.
And, you know, when I said, well, you know, what do you want to talk about on the show? And you said, go to my website. I do a lot of different things. In all of that, I had no idea that you were well-versed in tarot, but apparently you are.
I am. I come from some pretty long lineage of spiritual healers and advisors. I'm at least a 13th generation spiritual healer and advisor, and also 13th generation Druidic background. So I've got two sides, both coming in with the spirituality aspect and coming in with that sort of divination, intuition, gifts that run through the lineage of the family, which is wonderful. And of course, I'm sure your listeners or your viewers are quite familiar with what it takes to connect with the Druidic energy, which is very earth-based energy and very much aligned with caring for the earth and being in flow with the seasons and being in tune with that vibrational energy.
Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit. I mean, I think it is interesting that you've got this amazing lineage, which from my perspective, there's the ancestral thing, there's the bloodline thing, and then there's the energy with which you were raised. All of those things would come together to make you like the perfect storm as a human. Before, you know, as of all the things things that you do, the thing that I picked that I wanted to talk about today is compassion. And I've read your book, Activating Compassion, and I was playing with the workbook today, and I have some questions from that I want to play with. But before we do all of that, talk to me for a minute about how this perfect storm that you are, how does that work in your life? Tell us about your career. Tell us about what you do.
Well, it's now I'm an author. As people know, I've put out 4 books now, and I'm a speaker. I just came back from the Matriarch Gathering in a little bit east of Durango, Colorado, which was a blast. We were off the grid, so that was actually pretty nice to not have cell phone reception and internet for a few days out there. And an amazing group of people with that I got to present with. And then I also host my own radio show, which is on Blog Talk. It's called Activating Compassion in the Midnight Hour. And then I'm what's termed as an integrated development specialist. And I've got about 33 years working with clients and people in the personal development arena, in that area of helping them with their spiritual processes, understanding it, doing the intuitive work. And what that is as I really blend about 50 different practices, belief systems, cultures. So it's drawing in all these things from astrology to numerology. I used to write my own forecast, matter of fact, for astrology for a while. And it just all kind of came together in all these different pieces. So now when I work with people, I'm blending all these areas, and it's whatever comes in the moment. So when I coach, I'm not one of those people that has that set format, like, okay, we have this 6-month program and we're going to go step by step by step. I don't work that way. I work by conversation, like you and I are having a conversation right now. And then I let everything kind of flow in and tune in, and then I just hone right into what's happening with somebody. And so it provides big impact in a small amount of space. And then the foundation of the work I've developed up over the years to become compassion. And I had some work that I was doing online over the last recent years, and it was about 1.5 years ago that I actually ended up putting that book out. And it came about because my boyfriend kept saying, you got to write books, you've got all this information. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. I don't write books. I write poems. I write for my own personal self. I don't write books. And so it was kind of interesting. And then I thought, this is nuts. No, we don't do books. And about that same time, my clients were coming around and they were going, it's really great, all this information you're sharing and things like that, but I can't have you around 24/7, so I just wish you'd write a book. And about that time I go, okay, I think I'll write a book. I give in, universe, you're giving me the messages, I'll do it. And then, like a lot of people, I had to kind of figure out what's my message going to be. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it could be 100 different things, and where do I start with that? And I started reflecting at different things in my life, and I've been through a lot of different experiences, from near-death experiences to, being on the outside of things, to just all these different spiritual development processes. And I thought, well, where do I want to focus? Because that's a hard thing for me to do sometimes, is to focus in on one area. And I figured, well, I'm not coming up with something by just tuning into a message, so what's my pet peeve? And I went at it from that angle. And it was really, I was looking at it saying, well, my pet peeve is where people are making judgments. They look at somebody and they make a judgment, and they're treating them in a way without even really knowing them. And that's when I kind of came around and I said, okay, there's got to be something there. So what's the counterpart to that? And I said, oh, compassion. Compassion's the counterpart to that. And it's about expanding what we're seeing and realizing that there's more than what we're seeing right there. And then I thought, wow, compassion's a really big topic. And I'm thinking, gee, when I first think of compassion, I start thinking of priests and monks and ministers and people that have time to meditate about 12 hours out of the day. And I'm thinking, well, that doesn't seem very practical to share with people, does it? That's kind of like that dream, but you don't really relate to that. And I thought, here I am, this person who's a busy person. I've been in corporate America at different times in my life. And how do I take it and make it available to the person who has a family and kids or is working 2 jobs or things like that? And that's what brought it around to me. And I thought, wow, this is really going to hit home, because this now fits into all these things I've been through in my life where, when I was younger, I was the one being bullied most of the time. And I was, on that outside. I never quite fit into the rest of the kids and what they were doing. And I wasn't void of friends. I just didn't have very many friends growing up. And now, of course, we've got this big thing coming out with bullying, and it's become a big focus. About the same time my books were coming out, a little bit before that. And now we're opening up, and I'm getting more and more people going, yes, this is the path, because every major religion, belief system, spirituality system that I've delved into now looks at compassion and they say, this is the way. If you look at every single one of them, it says, this is the action that is going to save us. This is the thing that's going to pull us out of devastation. This is the thing that's going to change our world and catapult us into those higher dimensions. So that was exciting.
I couldn't agree with you more. It is exciting, and I've come to the same conclusion. And I find that in talking about compassion, and this is why I was really excited to find your work, because I've started blogging and talking about compassion, not in, just in this very organic way. It's coming up for me as a thing. And I'm getting a lot of resistance from people who really obviously don't understand what compassion is, who feel that it's a weakness, who feel that it's letting the mean people win, who feel that it comes in obviously very limited supply because they want to share their compassion for the people who deserve it. What do you say? I mean, do you, as you present compassion as an option, do you find that you get these kinds of comments, and what do you say to them?
It's very interesting that you bring that up, Christiana, because I think this is something that a lot of people think about when they think of compassion. They think of that very self-sacrificing, very, sometimes they'll think of Mother Teresa. They think of these big figures that didn't have to go out and work, and they didn't have to do these things. And maybe they had that ability to surround themselves by people who, weren't angry and frustrated and having issues in their life. They didn't want control. They had some of these abilities. And in some ways, they're a great example to really open up and say, wow, here's something amazing that's happening in the world. But that's part of a big piece of what I write about, is that compassion is really taking a lot of strength. And it really is about empowerment. And compassion is not self-sacrificing by any means. Matter of fact, one of the big things we have to learn how to do is to set boundaries. And people do. When they're givers, they give and they give and they give and they give. And they don't know where to draw the limits, or they won't draw the limits sometimes. Or they mistake that, hey, I'm helping this person. I gave them money, or I gave them a place to come in and live for a while. But they realize, they don't stop to think about what they're actually giving to. And so there are some differences there, and it's not that the drug addict or the person hanging out on the street or any of those people are less worthy of giving to than somebody who's already giving. But we need to look at what's happening there. So there's so many different ways to show compassion. It doesn't have to be this big giant escapade that people make it. And the piece that a lot of people forget about, especially as givers, is they forget about the aspect that you have to receive. That's a big part that they forget about, because the greatest, absolute greatest gift that you can give somebody is to allow them to give. So if you're not willing to receive, you're denying people of the greatest gift you can give them. And that's a huge, huge aspect in this work. So boundaries, standards, things like that. Just because you're compassionate doesn't mean you should let people walk all over you. As a matter of fact, that is not being compassionate. That's actually a form of being a martyr, and that's actually a form of playing into and feeding control patterns, abusive patterns, different things like that. So it absolutely is not part of compassion when you're letting people walk on you.
I could not agree more. And I think maybe there's something happening on the planet, because I think a lot of people are coming to this understanding, and these are people from different religious backgrounds, different cultures, different perspectives, but I feel like this maybe coming to this understanding is part of the vibrational raising of the planet, if you will. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Nice.
I think it very much is. This understanding of how compassion works is such a huge piece of emergence. It's such a huge piece of this raising up. Like I said before, when you look at every major belief system, spirituality system, whatever it is, it's about compassion. Whether you're looking at it from the aspect of Orthodox traditional religion or Hindu religions, or whether you're looking at it from Buddhist perspectives, or whether you're looking at it from a Druidic perspective. All of these true foundations are about caring about people. They're about caring about the earth, about the environment. It's about taking responsibility for ourselves. Matter of fact, I just put a video out this week. My video tip for the month was based on taking 100% responsibility. And that is the fact that, as you mentioned, a lot of times people, they get worried about getting walked on. And that's because they're not sure that they've got the strength to say no to people. So when you learn that power of no and when to say no, when to say yes, that's a huge factor in this compassion work. And you can truly help other people and truly be there for them, learn how to communicate with them, but then still keep your own self in the process. And that's the key, is there's different ways. You can't do the work for them. That's not being responsible. If you're trying to turn it over, they've got to make the changes themselves. So the key comes down to is no, you can't do it for them. You can't change for them. However, what your actions are, the actions that you choose to do in this process, is what makes the difference. So even if you're not getting the rewards back, so to say, and there are always rewards with compassion, because that's the law of return in the universe. That's how it works. It may not come back from the person that you gave it to, but it always comes back, and it's going to come back 3 to 10 times somewhere. Somewhere it may not come back immediately, it may not come back from that person, but sometimes what we get back is much better than what we would have gotten if we tried to force it from that person. So it's about being there, being consistent, and again, showing that example, because there's a lot of people out there that haven't grown up with compassion. They didn't have a living example. It's like people that get into abusive relationships. They oftentimes are there because they've never had an example of a healthy relationship in their life. And so they follow that pattern. And until somebody comes along and shows them what a healthy relationship is, how can they be there? So definitely it's there. It's about taking responsibility for our actions, how we're treating people. So even if they're angry or upset, that doesn't mean that we should turn around and be angry and upset and rude to them.
Right. Right. You're getting a lot of love in the chat room, by the way. Just got to tell you that.
Oh, good.
There's some smart people really kind of hashing all of this out, and they're right on board with it. So I was looking at your workbook, and I do want to let people know that there's the Activating Compassion book and then also a workbook. And I was looking at the workbook today, and this is from the introduction to, I want to say is it the Dealing with the Hidden Enemy chapter? There's this list of key points that I thought would be fun to get you to talk about.
Sure.
And it starts with judgment, and you've already mentioned that this whole thing for you started with judgment and how that was your pet peeve. And so the first key point here is judgment shows up in our doubts, fears, worries, pain, and creates triggers. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. And judgment's such a hidden thing. Matter of fact, you mentioned that, yes, I have the main book and I have the workbook. And I did that deliberately because there are people out there that love to just get the concepts and then run away with the concepts. And then there's people that like to take it further and do the meditations and the perception changing statements and affirmations and the extra tools and exercises. So it allowed me to actually keep the books more affordable by splitting them up that way and then giving people that choice of what they wanted to do. So when we look at that topic, a lot of times people say to me, they go, there's two things I found out about reading your books. I'm a lot more compassionate than I thought I was, and I'm a lot more judgmental than I thought I was. And so it's a really interesting thing, and I think we can all find that out because there's so many hidden judgments, and they're being made constantly. But a lot of the negative judgments, we'll phrase it that way, that come up in our life that we make about people or that people make about us is based on fear or based on pain. So it comes from two places. We're afraid of feeling close to somebody. We're afraid that we might become like them. Or there's pain there. We've been hurt by something in the past. And so we make a judgment. And this can come from grouping people. This can come from looking at, somebody who went speeding down the highway and got pulled over. This can come from looking at somebody and saying, they shouldn't be doing that, or these sorts of things. And so, for example, I like to use weight as an example because it's a big thing in our society. And my sister is so gracious about me using her for an example. So I thank her so much, especially if she's watching this right now. But, she has some extra weight on her, and it's not because she sits around eating a bunch of junk food. It's because she has medical issues that are related to latex allergies. And so, there are people that can be very harsh and very cruel. They look at her size, they look at her weight, and they don't stop to realize that she's a master gardener. She grows her own vegetables, so she's eating very healthy in a lot of ways and things like that. The first judgment is, here's somebody who sits around, they don't do anything, they're lazy, and it all cascades. But why do we make those judgments? Not just because we see somebody who's heavier, but because we have fears that maybe we'll become like that. Or we've been programmed with this pain. We might have even been repressed and forced into certain things growing up or around certain people in our lives that made us afraid of being fat, and carrying extra weight around. And it also reminds us when we see somebody that is, whether it's being overweight or having a physical challenge or things like that, it makes us uncomfortable a lot of times because we're afraid that that could happen to us. And that's a very big fear. What if I was like that? And they don't stop to think, how would I feel if I had something that was out of my control that I couldn't do? It's like aging. We're all going to age eventually. We're all going to hit a point where our bodies aren't going to function as well as we would like them to. So to sit around and make fun of these people when they're grabbing on to their last piece of independence. And when we look at these things, a big point here with this is that there's so much more to the picture than what we can see. And so, for example, you might be looking at somebody in the store, they're looking overweight, say they're 5'4" and they're 180 pounds and they're grabbing a pizza out of the frozen food section. And you're thinking, well, that person shouldn't be eating that pizza. They need to be losing weight. Come on, what are you doing grabbing that ice cream and pizza there, right? And so, we're looking at that, making a judgment in that situation. And what we don't know is maybe that person just finished losing 100 pounds and that's the first pizza they've eaten in 2 years. We don't know what else is happening, and we're never going to know the whole picture to something. All we have to know is what is in that moment and what are we going to do to create a better moment.
So I actually have two questions around that. And the first is this. Okay, so we're all guilty of this, no matter how spiritual we are, no matter how compassionate we are. My thing is smokers. I'm an ex-smoker. I quit smoking and more than 10 years ago. And I figure if I can quit smoking, then no one on the planet has an excuse for smoking. That was the hardest thing I ever did, and I am a weak individual when it comes to things like that, and I was able to do it. So I am extremely judgmental of smokers. Not to their face, I'm kind to them to their face, but in my mind, I'm thinking, that's some weak-ass stuff going on there. Okay, so, true story, there it is, I admit it. So, what can I do when someone lights up a cigarette and I'm thinking, you punk, what can I think instead? What is the next best thought that I can get onto that would be more loving, more compassionate, and more healing?
Yeah, that's a great example, Christiana, because that does happen. And there's a lot of people out there, whether they've beaten a habit like you have, or whether they're very good at something and they forget that not everybody's good at the same things that they are. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I see that with different people in my life as well that do that. They're really good at something. They're like, well, can't you just get it? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? But when we look at that thing, it's about looking beyond it. In the moment right now, what you're seeing is, oh my gosh, that person is smoking. It's horrible for them. I can't believe they're eating that. It would be the same judgment that, say, a vegan would make about somebody grabbing that big piece of non-organic meat out there. It's the same concept. Like, I can't believe you're going to put that in your mouth, right? And so when we really look at what's happening beyond the picture or what could be there, grabbing that thought and saying, this person may have developed a programming with this to help them reduce stress. It may have been a coping mechanism for them because of something that they grew up in their environment. It became an addiction, and like a lot of addictions, it's not that easy to kick. Even though you're a person that struggled with it, they may have an even harder time getting past of it. They may still be in an environment that's perpetuating that use of things. And somewhere, again, in there is a pain, there is a fear. If I put this cigarette down, am I going to put on 50 pounds? If I put this cigarette down, I'm going to have to face all the issues I've been avoiding and trying to de-stress with this cigarette. This is my security blanket. It's like Linus running around with a security blanket all the time. We all remember Peanuts, at least, well, if you're in my generation, you remember Peanuts. But it's the same concept. It's a security blanket. And instead of sitting there and being criticizing about that person and saying, do you know how bad that is for you? Get rid of that thing right now. We want to turn around and say, be patient with them. And say, I'm really curious. I quit smoking not too long ago, and I'm always curious to find out, what's behind it for somebody else. because I'm trying to understand this more, and I'm trying to understand myself more. Because somewhere there's a piece of you in that person. There's a piece of you that's kind of rebelling, saying, I wish I still had that cigarette in my mouth.
Oh, man, you are so on it. Oh, yes, of course.
So, you know, when we look at that and we realize there's still a piece of me there, because somewhere there's a pain in me that isn't resolved. There's a fear that's in me that somewhere I'm going to break over and I'm going to be that person again. And
so that goes back to judgment showing up in our fears.
Right, and that's judgment of ourselves reflecting through somebody else in that situation. Sure. And then realizing and saying, well, you know, I know that whenever the time is right for you, you're going to get past it. I know you have the strength, and I know that because we all come from spirit, and we all have that capability in us, but we all have different issues that we're dealing with. And what created you to start smoking may be totally different than what created that person to start smoking.
Right.
And we can plant the seeds, and we can be supportive and say, you know, well, you know, if you ever want to chat about it or anything like that, I'm happy to chat with you. Or, you know, I'm just wondering, because this was such a challenge for me to do, and I always wonder if somebody else is thinking about it as well.
Nice. So be support. Yeah, see, that's perfect. That's so perfect. So here's my next question around judgment. I was raised in a Christian environment. I still embrace a lot of the tenets of Christianity. I also identify as pagan. And so, you know, like you, clearly I see a strong variety of spiritual thought. I certainly identify as a spiritual person. And in interacting in all the spiritual communities, I see spiritual people as some of the most judgmental people of all. And I'm thinking, you know, here we are as spiritual people talking about compassion and how this is so elevating of ourselves and our communities and our entire planet, and how judgment is like the opposite of compassion. And so as spiritual people, we should be compassionate, but really we're the most judgmental people in the world. Why?
I think that's true. And the irony in that, as you bring up, is that spiritual people try to set themselves apart and say we're nothing like structured religion, because we don't go to a building, we don't have a leader, you know, we have this independent aspect about us, and yet they're making as many judgments as anybody sitting in any specific church who feels that their way is the way, the one way, the only way. And it really is true. I've experienced that too, that there are a lot of spiritual people, and it kind of comes back to that same concept of, hey, I got past this, I'm walking down this path. And I think what happens for a lot of us is it comes down to where we're kind of trying to justify a little bit the choice that we made to take, instead of sitting there and observing and saying, wow, this practice has some really beautiful rites, and they're doing some really amazing things over there, and this concept that they're dealing with and focusing on is incredible. We sit there and we say, no, this way is right. Everybody should become spiritual. Well, that's no different than everybody sitting in a Catholic church saying everybody should be Catholic, or everybody should be Christian, or everybody should be Hindu or Buddhist or anything else, or pagan for that matter. And so, again, it comes back to realizing that there's not one way. And if we get down to it, one thing that I learned about studying all these different belief systems is there are core threads that run through every single one of them. And they're all vehicles, just like there's multiple vehicles out there to drive. But some people do better with an SUV, and some people do better with a minivan, and some people do better with a little economy car, and some people need that big four-wheel drive that can go run over rugged terrain and rocks and everything else. And so there's different types, and within each of those types, there's different colors. And our belief systems are the same way. But if we get down to the core principles in all these different systems, it's about caring for yourself. It's about caring for others. It's about compassion is a big focus of it. It's about connecting with spirit by whatever name you call that, God, spirit, Lord, Allah, whoever. I don't know. Oops, I probably shouldn't have said that. I think I could be fined for that. Sorry about that.
Whatever.
So, I mean, whatever term you want to use is, call it by it. And I think that's the thing is the bottom line is we're all humans, basically. We all come from Creator. We all come from divine source or God or whatever term you want to use with it. And so realizing that we're really all one and the same, even though we're driving different vehicles, even though we're going down different roads. Not everybody belongs in a city. Not everybody belongs out on a farm. Okay? Different things for different people. And we're in different points on our path, different processes. So again, opening our eyes and saying, just because this is right for me doesn't mean it's right for everybody else. If there was only one way on this earth, one way to do things, one right plant, one right color, this world would be so boring. We would have nothing to learn from each other. We wouldn't be here because there wouldn't be anything to learn. We wouldn't have any purpose here.
So true. So true. That's brilliant. I so agree. So here's one, again, from your book. Change judgment to compassion with questions. What is that?
Yeah. Change judgment to compassion with questions. And that comes down, it kind of taps into an exercise a little bit that I do in there that deals with addressing our fears, addressing where our judgment is. And I give an example actually in that workbook. And it comes down to taking a judgment about something and breaking it down with questions. Why we think a certain way, why our opinion is, why we feel like we can't do something. And as we use these questions, we break it down and eventually we come to this process where we find out either we can do it and we run out of the judgments in the process, or we don't want to do it. And sometimes we create these excuses, right? Our judgments and our excuses go hand in hand with each other. We create those in there as a cushion. And sometimes we've been very programmed that instead of being able to just come out and say, I don't want to do that. Even if it's not healthy for me, I don't feel like doing that. Or I'm not at a point that that's an issue that I want to address right now in my life. I'm doing something else in my life right now. And instead of just coming out and owning up to that, owning up to the fact that we have a fear, that we're not perfect in every area, in every single way of our life, and that maybe we just don't want to work on something right now. We don't have to justify it to people. We don't have to have excuses for why we're not doing something. We're just not. And we may not even know it right now. It may just be something that it's like, I just not even looking at that in my life right at the moment. And that's okay.
Brilliant. I love that. I love the letting yourself off the hook. And I hear this too in terms of our judgment of ourselves and our judgment of others, that, yeah, we all want to work on our stuff, but if you're not ready, you're not ready, and that's okay too.
Yes. And so here we are, we're delving into these concepts, Christiana, and you're starting to see that this is not just an easy roll over somebody path. This is a path that is ever growing, ever building, no matter how many years you've been doing things, working with clients or not working with clients or walking your spirituality or whatever it is. These are always things that are going to be growing and developing in us. We're always working through things, always working past things, no matter how far along we've gotten on the path. So definitely it's about looking at it and having that strength to stand up and say, I'm just not doing it right now. And I don't have to have a reason and I don't have to justify it. It's just not. I might have 30 other things that I'm focusing on in the moment, and I'm going to get to that part of my spiritual process in a little bit later. But my focus right now, my desire for these other things is greater than my desire to face that at the moment.
Brilliant. I love that. Jessie Ann Nichols George, this is just one bit of the wisdom that you offer to people. You have 4 books. You do individual work with people. You also do speaking engagements. You've got your radio show on Blog Talk Radio. People can find you at your website. It's been running on the ticker. It's JessieAnnNicholsGeorge1.com. Is that correct? The number 1? Is that
Yep.
right? Anything else you want to put out there before we say goodbye?
I also have a lot of online courses going on that your group might be interested in. They start as low as $10, and on the high end, I have $50. I have actually an entire course in compassion that I'm doing right now. And even if they're jumping in late to the course, they can go back and get the other ones as well. And I'm going to be doing a course on relationships founded in my relationship books. And in addition to that, I do things based on honoring the moon cycles, like the full moon, the new moon, Semaine, and all of these other great celebrations that we have along the way. And then I have a few other little tidbits in there. So they can check that out. And I have a monthly special right now as well, that if anybody goes in and purchases one of the courses and takes one of the courses, then they can get a free ebook of Activating Compassion. And also for those that want to just check out the books and they're not interested in doing the courses right now, then they can email me and I'll get them a discount code. I'm going to do the paperbacks for them at $4.99 each and the ebook versions at $1.99 each. And they just email me, let me know which one they want. We'll make that special good a week from this show. So they'll have up to a week to take advantage of that. And then I've also created the Genesis Clearing Statement, which is a great tool for both releasing and manifesting. And that's absolutely free if they jump over to my website.
Terrific. Jessie Ann Nichols George, #1.com. As soon as the show's over, go there and take advantage of those great offers and all the great wisdom that Jessie has to share with you. Jessie, we are honored to have you with us. I hope you'll come back soon.
I would love it, Christiana.
Thank you so much. Okay, folks, that was phenomenal. Now I promised you a little bit of tarot stuff. One of the things I've done, and actually Jessie Ann does this as well, she has an amazing YouTube channel with all kinds of great stuff. I've started a YouTube channel too, and one of the things I'm doing is answers to your questions about tarot. If you email me with a question about tarot, I will answer it in a video, and I have one for you to share right now. So let's go to that. Hi, this is Christiana Gaudet with another answer to your question about tarot. Today's question comes from Linda, and it's about reversals. Linda did a reading for a client where every card was reversed. She wants to know if there would be a special way to interpret that or if I had any comments about that. I absolutely do. First, though, I'd like to talk a little bit about reversals. Now, there is no tradition that says that you absolutely have to handle reversals at all. Some traditions, in fact, say that you do not. I personally tend to always use reversals, and I encourage my students to do that as well. The reason is that I feel the reversal gives more information. It adds a texture, a nuance that wouldn't be there otherwise. Some people are uncomfortable with reversals because they have misconceptions. They think that the reversals would always be an opposite of the card in its upright meaning. Sometimes, yes, it could be an opposite, but not always. They think that reversals are always bad or always negative. No, certainly not. There are some cards I would much rather see reversed than in their upright position. So there's a lot of misinformation about reversals. And I think that keeps people from embracing them. So what is true about reversals? I believe that a reversal changes the energy of the card. So what you want to do is think about what is the energy of this card in its upright position. And now when we see the reversal, we see that the energy is changed. How might the energy be changed? Well, it could be an opposite. It could be a delay. It could be something that's happening that the client doesn't know how to deal with, so a resistance. The reversal might say that the client has a resistance to this energy. It could make it less or more. So the key in interpreting a reversal is to know what the energy is of the card in its upright, and then think about how the energy might be changed. Is it an opposite? Is it more? Is it less? Is it a resistance? Think about it that way, and you will find that using the reversals gives you greater information. Now, back to Linda's question. What happens if the majority of cards in a spread, or even all the cards in the spread, are reversed? I will interpret the reversals, but I will also interpret that trend of reversal. And when I see that, I think, oh my gosh, this person is really feeling upside down. This person is really not sure which way to go, or this person is contemplating actions that may not be in their best interest. So I would go ahead and interpret each card in its reversed position, but I would also add the additional interpretation having to do with having such a trend of reversals. Linda, I want to thank you so much for your question. If you have a question about tarot, go ahead and email it to me, and I'll make a video. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you check out my YouTube channel, and I hope you email me with your questions about tarot. I have one more video to share with you today. Some of you know when I was living on the East Coast of Florida, I was very active in Unity Church in the Gardens. Had a great time. This is a great, beautiful, beautiful church in Jupiter. We did tarot there. We did all kinds of stuff. I really miss them. But you know what? They're having a fundraiser this Friday. If you happen to be in the area, I'd really like you to go check this out. They're having a musical fundraiser. David Goodman, fabulous musician. I've got this video of him playing some music. I wanted to share it with you to entice you, not only to enjoy a great song at the end of our show, but if you happen to be in the area, to go support this great event coming up this Friday. So let's play that now.
Could be a rambler from the 7 Dials. I don't pay taxes 'cause I never file. I don't do work that don't make me smile. I love my aeroplane and she got style. I'm a treetop fly. I'm a born survivor. I walk alone. I fly whiskey, run your guns. The bush league pilots, man, they don't get the job done. They got to fly the canyons and you never see the sun. Ain't no such thing, brother, as an easy run. I'm a treetop I fly. I'm a born by bird. Walk alone. I fly low, I'm in high demand. I'll fly 15 feet right over the Rio Grande. Yeah, I'll blow the mesquite right off the sand. And I'm seldom seen, especially when I land. Things I am, there's things I'm not. I'm a smuggler and I might get shot. Yeah, I ain't going down, I ain't never gonna get caught. You give me an airplane, brother, I'm gonna give you food for thought. I'm a treetop pine, I'm a horse by bird. Walk along. I'm a treetop fly.
I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. Next week we have Pterodactyl, otherwise known as Mary Brown. We'll be talking about some tarot stuff, so I hope you'll be here with us. I also hope you're enjoying the Halloween Samhain fall season. I know I am, and if you're a professional reader like me, you're tired already with the Halloween parties have started, and my costume's getting a lot of use this year. I hope yours is too. Remember, I'm available for readings. Remember my schedule of webinars, and remember my weekly newsletter. If you're not getting my newsletter, you should be. Go to tarotbychristiana.com and sign up. Close to Death is next. Thank you so much for being here at Christiana Psychic Café.